quick overview of the city. We're going to talk about the city as a whole, then we're going to go into these individual little districts, talk about them a little bit, talk about the history, the design philosophy, and even previous problems or issues. We'll take a look at some of the general road hierarchy idea, as well as some of the public transit modes, the hierarchy, the philosophy behind that kind of stuff. And we'll take a deep dive into some of the more detailed aspects. We have some parks and some industries areas, and we'll finish off with talking about some future plans for expansion. As you can see, we have our 5x5 grid here, so it's about 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers area. So let's start with just a general walkthrough of this entire area. Here on the north we have a sort of oil industry zone. A lot of oil production, and we manufacture some plastics, some metals, we make some sort of fuels, that kind of stuff. Over here we have a bit of a expansion area. We have some high-rise buildings. We can look at the zoning patterns. We can see we have some commercial areas. They're pretty empty right now, though. We don't have a lot of commercial demand, but we do have a lot of residential and industrial demand. Come down here, we have some more as well. If I want, I can turn off the camera. We can take a look, and we can see we have some more sort of residential industrial area zones. A lot of these different areas, we have major intersections. We have these roundabouts, and for pedestrians to not block the flow of traffic as much, we have these large pedestrian overpass bridges that allow them to get from one place to the other without crossing the street. And down here, likewise, we have similar sort of second, third district area. A bit of a stadium here, some small parks here and there, and down here we have moving into another sort of zone. On this side, we have a lot of our tourist destinations. We have sort of this space station launch facility. We have a lot of these tourist attractions. We have our airport. That's the idea anyways. We have down on here, I guess we have our little, this area mines for ore, I believe. Down here we have another, and this area, because it's sort of beside the water, a lot of these areas, residences are sort of high density residential areas. This expands out here a little bit, where we have a bit more density residential areas, but this is to support this sort of forestry industry over here. Come back down. Across the bridge we see a bit of a smaller suburban, very low rise area down here, coupled with some more residential areas down here. Here we're kind of more suburban, low rises. Some further expansion down here as well. Along this coast we have some room for expansion. And down here we have sort of this island that's sort of cut off from this entire area. We have in the middle here, we have this big provincial, or I guess national city park with this sort of high density now area around here. Go up here, we have our second ore mining facility, as well as this small little road up here for this observatory. Here we have our business district. Now all of these are office, and I actually think all these are just office zones. So these are all consultants, bankers, that kind of stuff. Here we have a bit of more suburban area with a bit of a farmland, just a very small little farm area zone here. Too. Here we have our amusement park area. So we have our Ferris wheels or roller coasters, that kind of stuff. A little more north here we have another small district up here, which just only leads to this sort of ferry terminal. Lots of people coming in and out. So that's pretty much most of the city in a nutshell. And there's schools, there's fire stations, police stations all over town. They're all placed in different locations and that kind of stuff. But as a general overview, that's sort of the goal behind the whole thing. So if we want to take a look at sort of the more sector by sector point, let's start with Wood Hills. So this is where we started. This is our very first plot of land here. And we can see, if you look at the zoning history, most of these are residential areas down here. We have a bit of a small park down here, and here we have our stadium. This is very, very simple, nothing too special. Here we have a couple of hospitals, fire stations, schools, that kind of stuff. And we expanded up into this sort of northern area here. We call it Delta Works, but it's not really a delta. Again, we're expanding it more and more and more. After that, we went up here, and this is sort of the more premium area because it's sort of beside the water. Land value is a little bit higher up here. And so it's out here, and with some room for industry, we've sort of made this gigantic oil industry out here. You can see there's a lot of traffic, a lot of trucks trying to get in and out of these stations, in and out of these, the deposit storage areas, these refineries, all that kind of stuff. So traffic here was a bit of a puzzle to figure out, especially with these storage areas, because a lot of trucks want to go into these storage areas, but when they're turning into them and they're coming out, they create a bit of a delay. So I try to make the entrances a bit further off from the main road, so at least the main road itself is not incredibly congested. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but so far that's how it is. And of course, we have alongside the oil industry, mining rigs. We also just have sort of our regular industry here to fill in the gaps. Every so often, fill in the gaps. Other than that, we have our highway exit up here. Nothing too major. Again, small suburban areas which we could eventually turn into high rises, but that's for a later point of view. And we expanded out here into the King's Line. Now, this vertical road you see here, that used to be actually the boundary of our land plot. So we didn't actually have this whole other east side until later on. Now we had this one sort of harbor, this one sort of ferry terminal, just so people from outside of the city, outside connections can get in. And we have this our fusion power plant that just gives us a crazy amount of energy. And here we have a bit of a dam just driving along here. Not really that big, but it's a little thing. Train track running along it as well. There we go. And so we expanded on this other side. Not too much. Had a bit of a small farm here because there's some fertile soil here, but then we converted this into the actual industries farm, which you see here with the specific production plants, the greenhouses, flour mills, that kind of stuff. We've then built into a small amusement park up here. I thought it'd be a lot bigger. I originally had planned it to be a huge area, and of course it still could be. But this is basically at least one of every building already in there. And so it's even with that, it's still not taking up that space. But people coming in, everything's very compact and tight together. But it's a nice little area here. Again, the idea is with all these areas, we're not really worried about making money or not. We're okay with that. It's more about getting people to come visit the city. We needed a lot of industry at some point, so we had this entire area is all office space, which is very, very intense. Moved down here, and I think then we went to this sort of woodland district. We expanded out here a little bit as well, and then we sort of went from all this area. We went down south a bit of further expansion. Again, you see these are still just the suburban homes, so very low density stuff down here. There used to be a lot of traffic issues down this main road, these two main sort of roads, north-south roads. Part of that was solved by adding the roundabout, but really most of it, what was solved was adding these pedestrian overpasses, right? Because now pedestrians are not allowed to cross the road, so they won't slow down in the traffic there at all, and they can still get across and get by. Especially up here, we see a fair number of pedestrians. You can imagine if these pedestrians were to cross the road, it would slow down the roundabout traffic a lot. And here we have some more industry here, just because there's some ore resources down here, so a bit more industry up here. Our tourist area, we have a lot of just tourist attractions, all kind of stuff, airports, but not really used that majorly, I would say. And now we came down here, down south. We have this sort of waterfront, more or less waterfront property. A bit of a harbor for more outside connections, but this sort of this main road, and then these little sort of smaller roads with these very nice roads of trees and grass running along here. And then we sort of we moved more and more this way just because we had a space, and this is also a lot of this area manages to supply a lot of the workers for the sawmill, which is pretty important. We're moving down here. Now this whole area down here, this whole suburban area, that was sort of this big old planned area. Everything's all there. So very suburban. We have some occasional little shops here and there, the blue ones you see. And we have some of these trains for public transit, some of these subway stations for public transit, that kind of stuff. This is our original big ore industry, which we've converted mostly now again to the actual oil ore sector. You see we have a lot of traffic coming in and out. It's a lot, but it's not super congested, but there's definitely a lot of traffic coming in and coming out. We have a small little area down here, nothing too major, just a little quiet area. And this is a new expansion area we have just expanding. In case people ever want to show up, they can. With this nice little zoo here, actually. I do like this. We have elephants. A lot of people coming in and out, actually. Yeah. We have all these areas to get people to come in, get people to see what's going on. Zoos, all that kind of stuff. We have a little track and field area as well, just for people to, if they want, they can exercise a little bit. But for this island, the main way, and I think the only way of actually getting into the island and out of the island, is with these ferry terminals. There's 2 ferry terminals here, so you can see we have 3,000 or 1,500 passengers coming to these every week, just because, well, this is the only way to get in and out, right? Of course, on the island itself, you have this monorail that goes all the way around, and so there's always a little bit of transit in there. This huge park in the middle really ties everything together. We have a bit of a cargo harbor as well, just so shops and stuff can have some way to get goods in and out. But I really don't think this is necessary. Probably just remove this, but we'll see. Of course, we'll see. Alright, so now in terms of the general road hierarchy, the plan is basically we have this main highway cutting through the city. One splits into 2 right here, and that sort of encapsulates the sort of southern area. Outside connection through here, and also up through here. So what happens is, any area sort of here and here, they're pretty far away from highway connection. So what would happen? I would probably want to have another highway somehow connect these guys. But we have these highway exits located about every 2 kilometers ish from the highway, so there's plenty of ways for people to get in and out of the city, not all using one exit for the most part anyways. We try to use roundabouts where we can. It's saves a bit of a traffic, but we don't want to it's not always necessary. A lot better for higher traffic. When we have the highway exits, usually what happens is we have these main arterial roads that sort of go through the city. None of the residential areas ever connect, or they shouldn't ever connect to this arterial road. What happens is they go into these sort of smaller collector roads, and then we sort of zone around that. So then that way, if anyone ever wants to go onto a big road, or from a residence going into a big road, they have to first go onto these collectors, which slows, it allows people to go a bit slower. Because imagine if you're turning, you're slowing down things a bit. And you don't want people coming in and out directly onto these arterial roads, so that would slow down traffic a lot. Right, these are meant for fast traffic, through traffic for the most part. Other than that, for the most part, it's very grid-like. A lot of grids here and there. We have some areas where it's a bit more curvy, just a bit more loose with it. Usually lower density areas. That's the idea. For the most part, very grid-like. We have these arterial roads every so often, just trying to connect things here and there. Right. Now, in terms of public transit, let's go over some of the main lines. So we do have the occasional bus line here and there at the city, just small little bus loops, right? Trying to collect people from their houses and homes and lead them to these subway stops, right? That's the whole idea behind those. So we have these subway lines going across the city. I like going in loops. So we have a big loop sort of all the way down here, up here, big loop, as well as a smaller loop that cuts through the big loop, just so it's allows people in the middle here as well just to get on the subway and then get off the subway. Then we expand it down here. We have this sort of secondary area, this connector, this line that just goes straight from here to here. Now the reason this is not on the same metro line is what happens is if you have a lot of stops on the metro line, it creates a lot of delay. And especially if you have people riding these lines, you have thousands of people trying to ride this metro line, you don't want to have any delays, and you want to have more trains on the tracks as possible. So that way, by having this connector not actually be on the main metro line, we allow for, yes, people who want to switch, they have to walk a little bit, but that allows for less traffic jams, allows for more trains on the main circular track, which allows for more people to use the metro. Likewise, we have this sort of yellow line as well going downhill. Down here, it's making a loop, and then we have this blue line, very linear, but it goes all the way across, straight through here, and this is our big linear line. This line here, we can take a look. If you search by most of these passengers, that is this 2,300 passenger line, Quiet Cove separated. This is our huge line through and through, and we have 16 vehicles on this line, so this is jam-packed, right? We can see there's vehicles. You don't have to wait for more than a few minutes, right? And to get this level of efficiency, what we need to do is we have to separate these other connecting lines. We have to separate them from this main linear line, right? If you just look at the sheer number of people switching between lines, yes, we could have them all on the same line, but if they're all on the same line, that creates delays when other when other trains are using that stop, and that means we can't have our 20 passenger trains on this one line down here. So for sure, that's quite a lot of traffic. And then we have this teal line here, just serving this sort of area down here. Not a lot, not that many passengers, I don't think, but the occasional here and there. And we have this sort of strange connector area, weird sort of line, just making all these connections here and there, getting people to connect without causing too much traffic on the trams. And then we have this sort of purple line up here going through the consulting area. Again, likewise, we have this idea of separating these, but they're still connected because they're very close together. And this goes across all the way up here to this ferry terminal. And also, this sort of brown line also goes down to this sort of industrial area. I don't think many people use this portion, but it's nice to have some transit where you work. The monorail itself, we have on the island, it's our only monorail. And I think it just looks a bit cooler than just having a subway. Probably is a bit less space efficient, but it looks very nice, especially with these roads that allow you to have the roads on left and right side, and you have this sort of monorail SkyTrain sort of thing going through it. But I think it's very nice. There's not a huge amount of passengers. We do have 1,000 people in total, 500 going in each direction, one clockwise, one counterclockwise. And the ferry lines, our main ferry line is just between these two guys, but we also do have another ferry line just going across, all the way across through here, through the river. Some occasional stops here and there, but there's not a lot of people that use this. It's really just sort of, so you have an option, but oftentimes taking the ferry down here, walking up to the subway is going to be faster than going along this river, but it's a nice little option to have. One thing that I forgot to mention was that we have our trains. So let's take a look at our trains. if we want to hide everything, we keep our trains up. We have these sort of two parallel train lines. Typically what we have is we have this big loop that goes all the way around the entire city, all the way around, and we have these two parallel train lines. The inner loop on the inside is meant for passengers, and the outer loop is meant for cargo, for industries and factories and that kind of stuff. We have, I think, 5 passenger stops here and there. Here we did have to do a bit of a switch because the passenger side is, on the south, on the outside, and the industry side, is on the inside here. So we did a bit of a switcheroo here. But for the most part, that's what it is. A couple of major stops. I think this is a pretty popular passenger stop. You can see all the people, coming out of this train station. As well, we also have a stop up here for people if they need to, but this is not as popular. We have a stop over here as well. This is quite a popular station. And through here on the south side. So essentially we have train stations maybe every 3 or 4 metro stops, distance wise. This is usually a pretty popular station because this is beside the metro that goes to the airport, and this is also sort of beside everything else. So we have a bit of the metro down here as well. It's pretty popular. And then I think this is our industrial stop, so it's not actually a passenger stop. Here we have a bit of a strange little cargo train junction, just so we can get cargo here and cargo up through here and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit convoluted, but it does the job and it gets things done. It looks pretty nice. Oh, we also have a bit of a what is this? A cable car, just for fun. It's not a lot of passengers. Just it's kind of nice going down a mountain, all that kind of stuff. Down here, it's this area. So now let's talk a bit about our specific parks and industry zones. All right, we have our mountain parks. So this is our mountain park. This is our sort of keystone, one of the keystone parks that we have in this city. This and the amusement park. But it's a nice little forested area. Some camping zones here and there. If you go down here, you have some lookout areas. Very nice. You can see the city. Originally, I had planned to have the observatory up on here. The only problem was, in order for services like garbage and police to get up to the observatory, I had to build a road, and building a road is not great in the middle of your park. I don't really want a lot of traffic through the middle of my park, especially not, roads and that kind of stuff and cars. So instead, I've moved it. Now this is just purely a park. A couple entrances down here, just for people to also get on as well. Here as well, but this is not very used. I mean, you have to kind of walk up quite a ways before you even really get anywhere. But it's another option. Perhaps I should move this over here. Anyways, could have a little expansion area over here on this side. It makes for a little nice alternative little island area. Could have a bridge. Could just have a little ferry that goes by. This used to just be all low-rise buildings, but I want to make more use of the monorail, get more passengers on this, so I've converted most of the residential areas, at least on the sides, to high density. We have another industrial area over here. There's Ore Town. It's called Ore Town 2, but there's really no Ore Town 1. But here we are producing a lot of ores. It's probably our second largest, I would say, ore facility. We have our production zones here, these big old ore mines. We have some of our storage spaces here, and we have some of our refineries turning the ore into secondary ingredients as well. Here we have, let's go actually over here. We have our zoo. Now, originally I wanted to have a zoo in the other place in Quiet Cove, but I didn't have enough area zoned out for that. But here we have a lot of space. We have our zoo. It has, I think, one of every single zoo attraction, just to have them. Not really too worried about making money or anything about that from this, but it's a nice little attraction to have. It has a little walkway as well. If you really want a little walkway all the way over here to this sort of ocean encampment. Now, it's a bit strange because We are kind of on a hill, so you see these buildings are very high up. It looks a bit strange, but that's all right. I think that's all right. And here's where I try to have it at the zoo originally, but you see it's really quite small. Only allows for 3 enclosures, so it's not able to get the 5-star. But that's all right. There we go. Okay, and moving on to this side, we have, I think, a small park somewhere. Yes, Pine Park, a small little city park up here. Again, not very much, just a very small little area here. Not a lot of space, so you can't fit too much in here, but nice place to just hang out, relax a little bit. Right, you can see I have a lot of these sort of city parks, these 8x8 parks, and these were just because I have not had the parks DLC until now, and so these are just the regular default city parks, which are still fine, I think. Still nice. They fit nicely within our grid of 8x8. That's very cool. Here we have our sawmill area. Now this is the most recent industry. We have our big, 3x3 lanes coming in. Right, for big industry. We have a lot of forestry zones all across, and we have our huge warehouses to store the plane, the timber, and the paper as well, because we also have our production facility. I think it's this one, yeah, the furniture factory that takes in the timber and the paper to make furniture or finished goods. Right. This main material right here, a lot of forestry areas up here and all that kind of stuff. And the way that this actually gets out is through this cargo train terminal, which then takes everything out of here. This is I think this is actually our first ore industry area, but this is just the default industry. It's not been converted to the actual DLC industry. It's not anything special. It's just the regular, you zone it and you leave it, forget it, that kind of stuff. And it has a little train terminal as well to take things out of the city. We have, here we go. We have, so this is our sort of farming area. A lot of fields, kind of small, quite small, but we do have a lot of areas in here. Ways to produce, greenhouses, fields. And then we have this one bakery that requires all these products that we turn into pastries, and we can export that. Again, it's a very small industry. It's not meant to make too much money, but it's a nice little separation. It looks kind of nice as well, I think. And here we have 4 flags, reference to 6 Flags, of course, our nice industry city. For this bit of a amusement park ride, we have our roller coaster, we have our elevator, we have our rotating thing, we have a pirate ship, we have our Ferris wheels, that kind of stuff. We could build more up here, but perhaps I make this just make this more residential area as well. We'll see. We have our 5-star city park here. Again, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, we don't have this fully filled up. We still have some more stuff, but it's nice. We have, I think, one of every little attraction that you can have here, and it's just a nice little place, the center of one of these downtown areas. That's quite nice. And here is up here is our major oil industry. Now this gets a lot of traffic. It gets a lot of oil going through here and there. As you can see, we have a lot of oil mining facilities here, I guess, on the south side. Some train stations as well, just in case if people want to. Just a little bit of a quality of life thing for these people working here. They have a bit of a train station at least, anyways. Right? Up here, yeah, a lot of traffic. People are wanting to use this storage facilities. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of these warehouses and all that kind of stuff. Mainly down here into our fuels sector as here, plastic products. Yeah, so we don't have a lot of the unique factories across the city. Like we don't have printing press, we don't have toy factory, we don't have, frankly, most of these, right? And we totally could. The roads aren't that built up. I mean, it might work. They might just slowly produce these things. I could see having some of them near a cargo train terminal, just so that way the goods can get there faster, but we'll see. That's not an immediate concern right now. if we are talking about expansion, what I would want to do if, given what 20, 30, 40 more hours in this game, on this save at least, I want to expand up here a little bit. Probably mostly residential. We could have a bit of farmland here. I would definitely want to have a bit of this oil industry, have some nice cargo train connections through and through. Here potentially as well some, I think is this oil over here. If I can just yeah, this oil, we could potentially have some oil mining up here as well. We would want to have, I think, a highway at least loop up here a little bit, just so it's a bit more easier for people to get in and out, and the trains would have to be expanded as well. Again, we could expand out to this island a little bit, just make use of it a bit better. This area here, some more ore, I think ore, this might be oil, but some more industry over here as well beside this lake. Here we could just have straight up, very easy highway exits coming out here and filling this area up. We could maybe also just cut this train line cut down as well to get a bit of a train access for cargo or for passengers. Here is mostly done. Here, I think on this side we're just waiting for people to fill us up a little bit. A little bit of space down here to fill some stuff up. The mountain I think we leave as is. We could have a small little road on the other side of the mountain, but that's not a big deal. And we would also want to just also improve the transit, have some more connections, get some more riders. We have about 20,000 people riding this per week, which is a great number, but it's less than 10% of our population. But it does definitely help with traffic as well. Zoning wise, we do have a lot of industrial demand. I think that's because we originally had this huge area that was zoned by industry, and now we've removed more than half of it just to use this oil industry. And so we could also zone more industry as well. Potentially just more office areas, maybe over here, make some more office areas, that kind of stuff. But that is, again, for the future, something to consider. Yeah, so this is the city. The name of the city is Rockfield. It's the default name. I think it's fine. I didn't change it in the beginning, and I think it's not correct to change it now, so we'll just keep it as is. City of Rockfield, 360 population, probably could, if I let this run for a bit longer, probably could get to somewhere around 400k. I do have mods installed. I do have the traffic manager mod. I have one of the mods that helps with the population lifespan, helps prevent some of the death waves. I have some other quality of life mods. I did use one of the unlock all mods to unlock the these monuments, just because, well, I guess not this one. I got this. This one's coming after, but some of the monuments, especially the medical center, right? You need to basically destroy your city. You have to have really bad things happen in your city, high crime rate, low health, before you could unlock it. And by the time that I was thinking about building monuments, I already had 100,000, 150,000 people, and I didn't want to make everyone have no health just to unlock that. So that's why I got those unlocked for free, and those have been plopped down, and they're helping out a little bit here and there. But this is the city of Rockfield.